Alright, developer log for July 2024. My microphone audio is going to be worse than usual because my Rode microphone gave out on me. So I first thought it was broken. I tested it last week for something else and it didn't work. Turns out condenser microphones don't like humid weather, and it is hot and humid right now in the Netherlands. I mean, it's always hot and humid. We never have dry heat in the Netherlands. It's kind of like the UK or Florida. If it's hot, it's also humid. But either way, yeah, so that's kind of like my microphone is basically not working. So again, I need to get all the humidity out. Apparently the best way to do that is use a hairdryer. I don't have a hairdryer, so yeah, so I will just store it with a packet of silica gel, and hopefully in time it will work again properly. So hopefully next month I will have a proper microphone again. But so yeah, for now we're gonna have to use the Shure microphone, which does work, and of course it works because Shure microphones can survive a nuclear blast. So there's that. I have restarted work on the game. So I've been working on level 5. Level 5 is close to finished. I'm like halfway there in gameplay wise and like 99% there in level design. I just need to make the boss part. So it's going to have a boss, and that also needs to be implemented, and then it's done, and then I can continue to level 6. So yeah, that looks very good. So when I'm actually working on levels, I work very fast. I've been making a lot of progress quite quickly. So yeah, that's encouraging. Like so most of that work I did during my vacation, and I worked like 1 week on the vacation because the other week I spent doing an anatomy course for drawing. Because yes, drawing is a thing. I've not given up yet. Yeah, drawing is something I'm definitely like fully into now. Like whenever I do something new, I'm always like, will I stay interested in it? Because I have a tendency to like pick things up and then lose interest very quickly. So I'm always very hesitant to start things. But yes, the drawing thing has stuck, and I'm very happy with that. But okay, back to the game. Yeah, so in 1 week I basically almost finished level 5 from almost scratch, like 20% done, and to basically almost like 90% done. So that's good. So outside of that, unfortunately, I did have to. I'm doing some programming again. I was really hoping to like basically be done with programming, and I could just fully focus on again maps, enemies, weapons. I mean, weapons are done, but yeah, maps and enemies. That's basically the name of the game right now for development. But yeah, there are a few things. Again, I had to rework some stuff. It's just very frustrating, but it had to be done. So one thing that I've redone is the way animation. Objects are bound to the character in certain animations. So for example, when I throw flashbang grenades, the flashbang now correctly scales to the hand. If you watched my previous devlog, you know that the flashbang was floating in front of it. I have now a completely new way that it works. So previously I had a bound skeletal actor that would bind the skeleton, and then the pawn itself had to keep track of that skeleton and then remove it. But that's actually very inefficient. Having the pawn do too much, like this is a big problem, not a big problem anymore. But one of the big things that I really need to be careful about is that I don't put all of the code in the pawn class, because the pawn class is already huge. And if I have too much code in the pawn class, it just gets... So what I want to do is have almost all of the non-relevant code to the pawn be handled by something else. So the new objects thing that I use to bind objects to a skeletal mesh is called in SK animations. It's so SK bound skeletal mesh was the old one, which had to be kept track of by the pawn itself, and now I have SK bound cosmetic, and this is not just limited to skeletal meshes. It can also be static meshes. It could also be visual effects, and it can also be bound immediately. You don't have to call it from C++ codes. Okay, I thought for a moment it was gonna crash. I have to. Never mind. Yeah, I have compiled this session, and when I have compiled in the session, it is a very likely chance that it crashes. It has to do with like hot reloading during compilation, so hopefully it doesn't crash on me. But either way, back to the thing. So, stop saying that. The flashbang can now have an animation notified that handles getting a flashbang. This is not a flashbang, actually. Why is it calling the skull? Escape bound object flashbang. Okay, for some reason it's calling the skull. I don't know why. But either way, you can actually see that it spawns stuff from the animation asset, and I don't have to call it from code, which is just great because anything I can do from here is just way faster in development than having to go into the code, put something in the compilation. So in start bound objects, you can here see escape bound object flashbang, and which will automatically bind to the hand. And then at throw flashbang, I have end bound, which will automatically remove the flashbang, and it is seen by an integer, a name ID, which is a specific efficient implementation of strings in Unreal. So yeah, trying to keep up the pace. So the reason why I had to rework that was because I've now added new stuff to open gates. Oh, another thing that I've used it for is the sticky launcher, which had a detonator is now also called fruit fry, exactly the same code. So it's a lot much more efficient. But yeah, the reason why I needed new bound skeletal mesh code was I now would help if I grab the key card. So I now have these key cards. These are for the human levels, and it now plays an animation when you try and open it. So it actually shows you the key card being used. The same thing goes for demon levels. Demon levels now have skulls, so it's kind of like Doom. You have skull keys, so it will actually show a skull, and it makes it more evident what you're doing. So yeah, it really helps, these like little animations that just show you that, okay, you're opening the lock basically, and now I can walk through the gate. These now have sound, that's great. These actually don't have sound right now in the demo, so that rattling sound of the change, very good. Another thing that I've done is I also fixed a bug with the sticky launcher. So with the sticky launcher, it used to run on the old code that as soon as your weapon was empty, it would switch away and you couldn't switch back. So now you can always switch. This is specifically for the, no, not specific for the stick launcher. I actually made a scalable version where you can basically tell a weapon class that this is a weapon class that you need to be able to switch to even if the ammo is empty, so you can still detonate your stickies. So if you still have to do something with a weapon, even if it's out of ammo, you can switch to it. They've also added a new sound effect. This is much sharper explosion than before. The other explosion was very weak because it basically used an explosion sound effect for a different weapon. So yeah. There is that. Final thing I want to discuss was I'm reworking also some other code which is related to audio, pawn audio. So the way pawn audio works right now is if I go to my pawn audio component, and this one was always difficult to find for some reason because I always look over it. Pawn, what was it called? Pawn audio component. Yeah. So the way the pawn audio, I still have them bound here of course because I'm working on them. Okay, I mean pinned. So the way audio components used to work is this mess. So I had I had arrays of all different types of sounds. So idle sounds, spot sounds, spawn sounds, hurt sounds, blah 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 blah. Whatever. The problem with this implementation is the fact that by doing this implementation, I am every time when I want to have a new type of sound effect, I need to basically copy it, and I need to add and register a new sound array, compile, blah. Horrible. So I'm actually going to remove that with a string ID system. So I'm basically going to have strings, and those strings will be bound to a collection. So I have my old pawn audio struct, and I now also have pawn audio collection. And the way the pawn audio collection works is it has a name ID, a priority, and then it has the pawn audio array, and then I basically can insert them into the audio components dynamically. So I can dynamically add more stuff. So if I want a very specific sound effect, like let's say I want a specific entity to be able to tell, I know, for example, the troopers, like if someone comes from behind, if they get shot from behind, like, oh no, I get shot from behind. What I can do is, all I have to do right here is I can just do the find pawn, I don't know, audio attacked behind. Now I'll just call it a behind underscores for consistency. So a behind, and then I can just register I don't have to make a new array of like behind sound effects. I can just add new sound effects through the audio collection, because there's basically a array of audio collections. I can just add a new audio collection with the ID a behind, and then I can call that a behind. So I'm currently in the middle of changing all of this out. So if I, for example, go to the pawn has a bunch of audio calls. So let's see, pawn audio call. audio component call. You can see here this is the old call with an enumeration, so ESK pawn audio type pawn dev. And this is basically the new implementation, which I will be working on side by side, and then we'll slowly replace them. So yeah, this is the old one, and this is using the name ID, which again, this is just much simpler because I only have to add, I don't even have to add a constant. I could also just put the constant somewhere else. So yeah, I wouldn't have to constantly update this thing. Like, I'm not limited to these defines. I can just have it defined somewhere else as long as the registration and the call of the audio call uses the same string. And again, these are not strings, these are names, which are a more efficient version of strings. This is technically slower code because in enumerations I'm checking an integer, and if an integer is equal to 1, it's just basically one operation, whereas with strings it's the amount of operations, like how many characters there are in the string. But I'm not calling these things every single tick, and it is mostly irrelevant. These type of optimizations are not worth it in Unreal because most of the processing power goes to the physics, game tick physics anyway, and this stuff is nothing. So yeah, that's basically that. That's what I'm working on. I'm also gonna make a new inventory system that also uses string IDs, again name IDs, instead of pre-made variables, so I can just dynamically have an inventory, so I can add stuff to the inventory that I need and not have just dead variables. For example, all entities have variables that keep track of the keycards. However, the AI doesn't need keycards, like they don't need them. So why should they have them in their inventory basically? So yeah, when I make an inventory I can just have player specific variables very easily. And yeah, that's basically that. That's all I'm going to talk about. I don't want to keep this very long because for some reason my render times for these things are ridiculously long. I don't know why. They were never this long, but yeah. So yeah. I'm trying to think if I forgot anything. Oh yeah, out of the game. Like, my music is basically done. I uploaded the last track, like that was Demon Core. That was the one that I worked on a bit more than usual. Demon Core is done. And that was the last track of volume 1. So now all 3 of my volumes are technically done. I just need to go back to volume 2 and volume 3 and rework about 16 tracks. Now, I'm not going to remake them completely like I did with all with volume 2 and 1. I'm just going to be remastering. So there won't be big changes, so I can go pretty quickly through it. And once I've remastered, I'm also not going to upload the remasters of 2. Those would just be whatever. And once those are remastered, I can put stuff up on streaming platforms. So yeah, with my music, almost done. So yeah, things are going pretty well on all 3 creative aspects. Drawing is going well, game development has started again, and I am basically done with my music. Like, I don't have to do really any big creative stuff, just a bit of remastering. So I will probably be rapidly uploading a bunch of remasters very quickly. And that really is it. Goodbye.